All right, let me pull up my page here. We just got off a long live feed with Canel, and I want to discuss it. How's it going, Charlie? Let me pull this up. Bear with me. So while we're letting a few people come in, Kristen's gone. She left this. I don't know how many people. I don't know how many people like white cheddar popcorn, but I want to tell you, I think it's sort of all that. I really do. So Charlie's here for a minute. I know you're out east, Charlie. We sort of alluded to this at the end of Canel's live feed, and I thought we would just talk about it. So the topic is, why do carriers fail? If Mooch is here, welcome, Food Mooch. Thanks for joining. I've talked about this a lot on the first channel, a little bit on this channel, although the videos are older, and it's really probably one of the top couple sins that you can make as a carrier. And I'm going to own the fact that I made it a few days ago, and it really is revolving terms and conditions for a contract. And I'll share with you guys what happened. We were making light of it and fun of it, but it's a pretty serious issue, and I'll go into some level of detail about it. For those that weren't on Canel's 2-hour live feed, terms and conditions, T's and C's, and that comes in the form of a rate confirmation. Right, so for those of you guys that are lease operators or owner operators or small carriers, every load that you book, you're going to get a rate confirmation, and it's up to us on this side, the carrier, to agree to the carrier setup package that we receive or not. And when we agree to that, we are agreeing contractually, legally, in a court of law that those are the terms and conditions that we agree to. If we disagree with those, then we need to work that into that conversation early. I do that in some cases, and in some cases I don't. In the case that I didn't hear recently, it bit us. It bit us hard. We took a load of apples from Evans Fruit out of Cowiche, Washington. We delivered that load down to Nogales, right? Driver got there yesterday morning, 0800 for his delivery. To accomplish that, we had to go out a route about 150 miles. So you take your cost per mile, if you know what it is, multiply that by 150 miles, and you'll figure out pretty quickly that's a few $100s of profit that you just lost. But we did that. We made that business decision to make sure that we, one, delivered on time, and two, we got that truck empty so that we could capture another load and make some more revenue. That's not the broker's fault. That's not the shipper's fault. That's on us. Now, what we could have done is reached out to the broker to say, hey, there's a road closure. We got a couple choices, and here's what the case is. Are you willing to pay for this? In some cases, they do, and they appreciate that opportunity. In some cases, they just sort of flip the middle, put the middle finger up and say, screw you, that's on you. In this particular case, we went out a route, kind of eroding more of our profit. We arrived at the shipper on time is the good news. The bad news is the shipper had failed to include the proper paperwork for this produce to go across the border. Making matters worse, the paperwork had to be an original document signed. The only way to achieve that is to FedEx that document from Washington to Nogales. Net result was our truck was sort of held, I'll kind of say hostage. That's probably I've been accused of that in the past, so I think it's probably fair. Although we were willing to accommodate the error on the shipper's part, again, that was Evans Fruit. If you're curious what Evans Fruit phone number is, I'll place that right there in the chat box below. The paperwork was incorrect, and so they overnighted it. And so it finally got there this afternoon. So we had held on to this load for, I don't know, 30 to 35 hours, something like that. And I'd shared with the broker what our costs were, plus reefer fuel. And we received approximately 10 times less the amount of our cost. Now, what Evans had offered was about $100 a day. Now, I'll tell you guys, candidly, pretty typical standard labor pay is about $250 a day. The broker, threw in some extra money, but quite frankly, it just doesn't really matter. Now, again, a lot of this is on me, right? For not doing what I have suggested others to do, which is ensure that you've got proper terms and conditions to protect yourself. Not surprisingly, when I called, so the truck gets empty this afternoon and whatever, that all takes care of itself. Not surprisingly, the very next load that I call on was a broker for a load coming out of Nogales. And I said, listen, here's the rate that we're willing to do it for. And we sort of settle on, miles and rate and delivery time and pickup time and all that sort of stuff. And I simply said, hey, look, I just, want to be really upfront with you. We're willing to do it at this rate. We'll pick it up on time. We'll deliver on time. Our driver's going to communicate well, yada, yada, yada. But I'm going to require some protection on this because a lot of the freight we haul reefer, a lot of freight that comes across the border, a lot of times it just doesn't come across or it's not loaded on time or God forbid there'll be paperwork issues. Just so you know, we're going to be charging a $750 fee should this not get loaded, tomorrow. And I just sort of shared with him, here's why we are going to do this. And if the freight is across the border and it is what you say it is and everything's great, no issue. But we've got to protect ourselves. And the broker said, man, you know what? I appreciate carriers like you. And so he agreed to that. Outstanding, right? So finally we got some protection. The problem is I didn't do that on the solo load, and it cost us a lot. Again, my error. Now, having said that, Evans Fruit had the opportunity to do the right thing, knowing that we picked it on time. We communicated really well throughout the entire load, and we delivered on time. Even going out or out about 150 miles to ensure that we made sure that their product got there on time. Never mind their mistake. All that they really knew is that this was 100% their error, and they chose to bend us over the desk and smile about it as it was going down. So one of the biggest reasons carriers are going to fail, guys, is for that reason: not understanding the business side of trucking. And even when you do understand it, and I feel like I understand it pretty well, there are times when either you fail to get terms and conditions in that contract, or you can't get terms and conditions that are beneficial to you, right? If you're in an area where there's a lot of trucks, a high number of trucks to load ratio, you're gonna have a really tough time getting T's and C's with that particular brokerage or that shipper. And sometimes you just have to take a chance. But I'm just suggesting that you guys really revisit this. I'm saying this because it bit us, right? And avoid this at all costs. But that's a real reason why guys are going to fail. Another reason why guys are going to fail is a lack of understanding. And I use the term of costs. But what I really mean is profit and loss, right? When I say cost, what I'm really saying, and I should be more clear, is P&L. When you understand profit and loss, and that means that you're also understanding the cost that it is necessary to run your business, right? So when I talk about cost per mile, and I've had a lot of guys send me spreadsheets, and it's recently, over the past just 2 months or so, that I'm realizing I need to change my vernacular, and I need to be speaking in terms of P&L, not just cost. Because cost per mile is just one subset. It's one component of what you need to be really successful. What you really need to understand is profit and loss, and cost is but yet a piece of that. So for those that have sent me their P&L statements that I've looked at, we've had some email correspondence back and forth. Again, what you're really after is a P&L statement, right? You want to know what your costs are so that you can charge more, which is your price, and so that there's a delta in there, which is your profit. Yeah, it is. Two videos in one day. You call me crazy, I know. So that's sort of item 2, right? Terms and conditions, right? There's a that's just sort of a standard business practice, right? But it's up to you to work in some language to protect you, right? It really is. Understanding some P&L, that's a really critical component. As we were just talking about on that other video with Cannell and Mark State and James and a few other guys, maintenance costs are a big piece of that. And as I've seen a lot of guys' P&Ls, if you guys have sent me your stuff, general rule of thumb is, for a new truck under 2 years old, about 10 cents per mile. For anything over 2 years old, guys are withholding about 12 cents per mile, maybe even 15 cents. But what's shocking is when I look at these P&L statements, guys are averaging between 22 and 25 cents. If you're running 100,000 miles, that's a difference of roughly $10,000 that you've got to fork over. If you're not pulling that information out, guess what? You've got to come up with 10 grand out of your pocket, and that can be pretty detrimental. So, what the data suggests, what we hear in the industry is, man, hold 10 cents back for a new truck, hold 12 to 15 back on a used truck. But in reality, what 15 or 20 guys that send me their P&L that says, hey, would you look at this? What am I doing wrong? That's one of the things that jumps out at me, because that's $10,000 per year that guys aren't factoring. So that's a big piece of that. Speaking of factoring, Mark State asked the question, and a couple of people discussed it. What's a decent factoring rate? You can see some of these other Facebook sites that, hey, use our affiliate link and you can go factor for 3%. In my opinion, you're getting screwed, you're getting gouged, you're doing exactly what Evans Fruit did to us. By the way, if you want to let Evans Fruit know what you feel, there's the number right there. You're getting gouged, right? You're getting taken advantage of if you're somewhere in that 2.5% to 3%. You should be somewhere in that 1.5% to 2%. Now, typically what those guys are going to do is they're going to want to factor everything. And that's fair, right? Because you don't want them to carry just the bad debt. You want them to be able to have some wins as well. Because what they're going to offer is some recourse for you. They're going to offer back office services. They're going to offer debt collection and all that sort of stuff. That comes at a cost, right? And so you can't expect that they're going to carry the bad debt and lose money without having some wins as well. So I think understanding factoring and having the cash flow that factoring provides is a really critical component for guys to be successful. Why is factoring sort of a necessary evil? For a small carrier that doesn't have the ability to withstand pretty significant swings of highs and lows, right? Cash flow is king, right? And so you need to be able to manage your expenses accordingly. Being able to give up 1.5% or 2% of your revenue is a cost of doing business, so that you can have that cash on hand usually within 48 hours so that you can manage your business better. So while I'm not a big fan of factoring, I also want to say that there are times when it's completely appropriate and it's beneficial to the small carrier, the lease operator or owner operator as well. Should you put a cap on your maintenance fund, say $25,000? I'm saving for a breakdown before I scrape up for the down payment, insurance, tax, etc. Well, look, you're going to be withholding that money, right? If you don't use it, then great, it's still there. In a worst case scenario, if it's available, it's that whole adage, right? It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So I don't know that I would cap it. Look, it's sort of, what you're sort of saying there, what you're asking is, is it a bad thing to have too much money? And the answer is typically no, right? Especially in a low margin, high cash flow business like we have, right? It's having enough cash on hand is always a good thing, because you have to understand, guys, if you experience a breakdown, at best case scenario, you're just going to have the breakdown, right? You're going to be in and out in a day and a half. Worst case scenario, you're going to have a tow bill that your insurance may or may not cover. I would encourage you to make sure that you read your insurance policy to make sure that towing is covered in there. If towing is covered, make sure it's not limited to just a few times a year. Again, devil is in the details, so pay close attention to that. But a lot of times you're going to have towing, you're going to have hotel, you're going to have truck expense. But even more than that, you're going to have truck payment, trailer payment, insurance payment, all these other payments that come out weekly that you're going to have to cover as well. Oh, by the way, if you have a significant other or little mouths to feed back at home, they're still going to need, shoes for school, lunch money, money for groceries, pay the bills, pay for the mortgage, keep the lights on, all those sorts of things. So there's a lot of moving pieces to that. And so my opinion is, withholding more is a good thing, right? In my opinion, look, if you can have $20,000-$25,000 on hand at all times, you should be really in a good position. If even something bad happens to your truck, you've got enough money for a tow bill, you've got enough money for a week in a hotel, you can still make truck payments, trailer payments, you can still pay the mortgage at home if you happen to have all this happen at the end of the month when your bills are due. So, can you get into this business for $5,000 down? You can, but you're gonna be rolling the dice and hoping that something bad doesn't happen. If you watch this channel for any amount of time, you know that hope is a really crappy business plan. So, that's my 2 cents. I'm late to the party, says Barb. What the heck did Evans Fruit do? Man, they failed to put the correct paperwork in the driver's hands, resulting in us sitting for about a day and a half, and they wanted to offer us $200 for our services. The $200 probably covered the reefer fuel, but that's about it, right? Doesn't cover the driver's pay, doesn't cover anything else. We'll have to cover that out of pocket. So if you want to contact Evans Fruit, there's the number, just so happened to be. Call them and let them know. If you guys run a reefer, man, I would be really cautious with these guys. If you're gonna haul their loads, just ensure that you have proper terms and conditions to cover your loss should this happen. Now, I will go so far as to tell you, I think Aaron's in here. I think I saw him somewhere earlier. I know he was in the other channel. This was a situation that we did everything right, candidly, as a carrier. I mean, we did everything right. Except I did not do a really important factor, which is cover our butt from terms and conditions. So, Aaron did everything right. He communicated exceptionally well. The broker was beyond pleased. The broker was very apologetic. But quite frankly, apologies it's funny, right? It's really tough to cash apologies at the bank. It doesn't pay bills nearly as well as we would hope. So, cover your tail and make sure that you are covering yourselves via terms and conditions if you're going to haul freight. And again, the problem is that we all hope that if we're going to do everything right and we're going to add a lot of value, that the shipper is going to appreciate it. And in a lot of cases, they just don't. I mean, they just don't care. So, you end up getting screwed, or I end up getting screwed, and that's not what we want. So make sure that you've got terms and conditions in there that are going to cover your cost if they don't do their job. And that was kind of what happened. Engine rebuild replacement 30K. That seems really high, Jim. Maybe if you're looking at all the costs, including downtime and your pay and that sort of stuff, I think 30K is really high. You're probably looking at, full end frame is probably somewhere around, 20 grand, right? But you're also experiencing some downtime there. So yeah. Let's see, don't haul their loads. Man, I'm not saying don't haul their loads. I'm just saying make sure that you've got terms and conditions in place with the brokerage so that you're covered, right? If you're covered, you're covered. Again, 100% on me. And I preach a lot about that. And so the egg is on my face because I preach about it. I preach about it to you guys. And I come across as a hypocrite because I didn't do what I suggest. So shame on me. But it bit me. And it bit me to the tune of probably about $1,800, right? And so that's going to sting, right? That's going to sting a lot, right? It's not out of Wenatchee or Yakima. It was out of Cowiche, right? So same area, right? Same general area, but they're out of Cowiche. Alice is here. Allie says that was also partially the driver's fault for not double checking paperwork. Well, here's the thing, right? In this particular case, this was something that, truthfully, we weren't aware that needed to be in there, right? We didn't know that this needed to be an original document to be signed. Now we do, but we've hauled a fair amount of apples and onions and produce out of the Northwest over the years, This was something that we had to learn. It just came at a really, really expensive price tag. However, Alice, I will agree with you. Now that you bring it up, I don't want to take any responsibility for this. I want to blame Aaron for this. Aaron, I'm going to take this out of your pay. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's on us, right, for not having the terms and conditions in place. They had an opportunity to do right for the carrier that took care of their product, got it there on time, and they chose to sort of bend us over the desk. And that was disappointing. It really was. Kawichi, you got it. There it is, pigtail. That's right. Bluish, you know, listen, man, we've hauled a lot of apples and stuff like that, and I will tell you that the broker was pretty clear in saying that we are not the only. This isn't a one-off, right? If this was a one-off, I don't know that I would be quite as vocal about this. But the fact of the matter is that they were saying that they've experienced this on more than one occasion, and I think what they said is that they've got somebody else that's in a similar situation as well. So clearly, you know, there's someone within Evans whose job is to take care of this, and unfortunately, it's failing to get done. And the net result is we as carriers are suffering the consequences of someone not doing this job, and that's a painful situation. Again, learn from my mistake and put T's and C's for those of you guys. And it doesn't matter if you're hauling reefer or dry van or flatbed or step. I mean, make sure that the T's and C's are in there for detention. And again, I understand that you can't get it in there on everything, on every conversation with every broker, but be sure and ask. I mean, make it a part. It should be every bit as important as the rate that you're going to ask for is going to be the coverage for detention or layover. I mean, it should be that important. So shame on me. KMC says, you're exactly right. Shippers don't care about that added value. What do you think mega carriers have snapped up most of the dedicated contracts? It's just money. Yeah. Man, as I sit here tonight, KMC, I couldn't disagree with you more. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Excuse me, you're right. Shane Ferris has the best accessorial charge policies I've ever seen. I use his and charge. You know what? I've seen his, actually. I have. And it is rather detailed. It's relatively extensive, and it is, I would say that it's very solid. And so I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely right. Again, shame on me for not addressing it. Now, and look, let me just tell you guys how this played out. This broker has reached out to us, or reached out to me, gosh, probably a dozen times, right? As we've had trucks posted in the area that he operates, and we just haven't had a fit, right? And so when he called the other day, for the first time out of it, probably a dozen times, it was a good fit. And every time, you know, this individual said all the right things, and I happen to be in my truck, not in front of the laptop. I don't know if that really matters. I still could have asked for terms and conditions. I'm probably just making excuses here, to be honest. But I failed to ask for coverage on the T's and C's. And so the rate con came over, I signed it, and like I said, it bit us in the ass hard, to the tune of, you know, slightly over $1,800. And so, you know, that's on me, man. Empty Fuel says, I just took a look at their website. They look like a decent sized company. They should have made sure that your paperwork was correct. Poor business practices. I'd never haul for them. And, you know, again, like it's just shameful. Like, look, we're a shipper as well, right? And we utilize a lot of owner operators and a lot of lease operators during our busy times of the year. And I'm just going to tell you, you know, we've had a couple of one-off cases. In fact, I'll tell you this. I had a guy I think it was last year, on Easter Sunday. We had one of our trailers break down. I don't know if it was a lift. I don't remember what the issue was, right? We have a shop just down the street. And this person, instead of taking that trailer to the shop, getting it fixed, and trusting that I would take care of them, because we have had experience before. This person hauled for us the year before. They said, look, I'm not going to do this. Screw it. Again, last year rates were really good. They said, screw it. They came in, they tossed the fuel card on our transportation manager's desk on Easter Sunday instead of taking the load. And they walked out. And that load of perishable product was sitting there, not being delivered. Now, the disappointing thing is I felt like my reputation warranted that this person knew that even if they didn't get a response from the person that they called within an hour, that we would do the right thing. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and they bailed. And that sucks, right? I mean, it sucks. Having said that, man, I would have made sure that that person was taken care of because they had done a really good job for us the year before, and I want to make sure we're taking care of people that are taking care of us. In that case, that's exactly what would happen, right? They're going to take care of the trailer, get whatever the issue was fixed and repaired on our dollar, make sure that delivery happened, and I would have compensated them for that. And so I'm not asking for, in this case, Evans, to do something that we wouldn't do. Again, we're a shipper as well. But they had the opportunity, in my opinion, they failed miserably by offering us $100 a day. I mean, I think any of us on this side of that relationship as a carrier would know that that's just laughable, right? William, how's it going? Allie says she'll be 14 hours early for delivery. Make sure that you let your dispatcher know so they can try to get you a load sooner rather than later. Yeah, Joe Harding, I'm going to make sure that that Aaron gets a run to the Bronx. Seems only fair, right? Seems only fair. Let's see, you're going to have to keep hauling for him now. Just get your money back. Yeah, no doubt, right? Little Vikings in here. I didn't know this until earlier. He's going to be running for president. I heard that. That was news. And that's not fake news. He says Evans Fruits hates truckers. You can call them, let them know at 509-678-4127. Ask Joe Evans why. I think that's a fair question. I think it's an exceptionally fair question. Why would you screw a carrier that bends over backwards to do right for you, but then you screw them when they do everything right? I think it's a fair question. Mark State says, sound like it's a bit hard. You now need a bottle of Pendleton 20. I do. And I did ask that for the live feed. I am officially out of 20 year. I had the empty bottle right here. I did ask if anybody knows where there's a bottle of 20-year Pendleton. Let me know. thetruckingexec@gmail.com. And I'll reach out to them. I don't care if it's in New York, right? I'll arrange for shipment. Chris Smith says, you have brokers out there that explicitly say detention in produce shipping is not standard for trucking. You're absolutely right, Chris, and I'll address that in just a minute. Then why not change the standards unless they really don't care about the abuse? And I think you just hit the nail on the head. Look, we understand that when as a carrier that runs reefer, if you're gonna pull into someone that's hauling fresh beef or frozen beef, things that a lot of times those can have really long load times. Even then, right, if you're expecting a 6 to 8 hour load time, that's fine, right? If that's what's standard, which falls far outside of the norm in the industry of 2 to 3 hours, then make sure that you're putting T's and C's in there after 6 to 8 hours, right? Now, a lot of those loads typically pay significantly more. The problem is if you get hung up for an additional 8 or 10 hours, or an extra half a day or a day, all of a sudden that load that pays exceptionally more just pays average now, and so it doesn't behoove you to take that run. Even then, right? Even then, you want to get some of that in. Empty fuel, yes, I know you're up in New York. Maybe what we could do, Empty Fuel, is we could bring the load up to you. We could do a trailer swap. And you can take it in the Bronx for us. Yeah, exactly, right? What's the Bronx? What's New York? No doubt. I've had every recruiter east of the Mississippi trying to get me to take the liftgate gig into the boroughs. No thanks. Man, yeah, that'd be kind of rough, right? I've spent enough time up in New York. I've seen some of those guys. Gosh, what comes to mind is, these guys in box trucks delivering these like ridiculously amazing portobello mushrooms, right? That are so fresh. I'm thankful for those guys because the food's amazing up there, but holy cow. Mark State, I'm just kind of jumping up. Mark State says, how much cash reserve would you recommend in order not to have to use a factoring company? Or is the real value at the debt, is the real value in the debt collection and other value add? So to me, Mark, if you run the numbers on sort of 1 or 2 bad debts over the year, right? I mean, if you're running Reaver, you're probably going to do somewhere between $250,000 to $300,000 in revenue, depending on how hard you want to run for the year. And when you look at the factoring cost of 1.5% to 2%, truthfully, for a factoring company, at 1.5% to 2%, you're really money ahead if you've got 1 or 2 bad debts that happen, you know, on a $3,000 load or 2. Truthfully, you're sort of better off to use a factoring company for a one-truck operation. Again, you're sort of money ahead when you run those numbers of 1.5% or 2% because they're covering all the bad debt risks that you could have. So the short answer is, you know, if you can get factoring at 1.5% to 2%, and you're going to be running $250,000 to $300,000 worth of revenue on your truck, then it probably makes sense to factor. Right, it really does. Canel's in here. He was drunk earlier, which I don't condone. I just want you guys to know that. Mark Stace says producing standalone videos takes up too much time now. Live streaming is faster. It is, right, Mark? I mean, it's just, I actually really enjoy doing some of the editing videos and putting some sarcastic. And that was Howard calling. Shame on him. He should be on the live feed, really. I'm really disappointed that he's not. I want to email him really quick, let him know why. I missed his call. So bear with me. You just killed it. Shame on you. So that's that. All right, let me jump back over here. Try to answer a few more questions. Wayne's here, Jose, everybody else. I'm really late, right? So welcome everybody that's here. Let's see, jump down to some questions. Let's see, Empty Fuel says, I just took a look. Oh yeah, I answered that. Mark says, as much as most of the industry despises mega carriers, they're moving the needle in the driver's favor when it comes to T's and C's. I've seen my paid attention go from 30% now to 60%. Well, that's a good thing. That really is. Somebody asked in that other live feed, was it Snake Eyes, I think it was, about is there value or is it going to hurt us when it comes to these, the JB Hunts, the Ubers, some of the online sort of auction houses for freight? In my opinion, the short answer is, I think it's going to hurt. And I think it's going to hurt because, gosh, what's the guy's name? Somebody help me out. What's the guy that has the radio show? I should know his name. He talks a lot about cost per mile and those sorts of things, as do I. I can't think of his name. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'd read a comment, an article that he had made years ago. Kevin, yes. What's his last name? Kevin Rutherford. Kevin Rutherford. Kevin Rutherford made the same comment, and I would agree with this based on what I've seen. He made the comment that about, in his opinion, about 90% of owner-operators do not know what their costs are. And I would agree with that based on this. I'm assuming that Kevin, because of his reach, sees a lot larger data pool than I do. But I can tell you, I've probably talked to, I don't know, many hundreds of drivers over the past year and a half, 2 years. And I would agree with his number. About 90% don't really know what their costs are. So Howard, thank you for joining. Everybody shame Howard, which is what, other side of the wheel. He's the one that killed the live feed, so blame him, not me. But Kevin talks about that, and I would agree with Kevin 100%. Probably 90% of the guys don't know their costs. And so when you look at these freight online auction houses, the Ubers, the JB Hunts, the Coyotes, etc., if you don't know what your costs are, and you're going in, I mean, and I talked about this in the earlier video with Canal, and I've talked about this over the past week or two. Here's what you sort of see. Pick a run. Let's say the run should pay somewhere in that, whatever, DAT says it should pay $3 grand. Most guys, the first bid or two is probably 37, 3,800, $4 grand. Second bid might be, if let's say the first bid, let's say it should pay $3 grand is what DAT says. First bid's usually about $4 grand. Second bid comes in around 37, 3,800. The third bid comes in at like 2,800. I mean, like what? Like who does that, right? Why would you do that? And you either need to take that load insanely bad at a loss, or you simply don't know what your costs are. So I don't know that those are going to be good for the guys that really provide a value to this industry. And there are plenty of guys, plenty of carriers that provide a value even in a commoditized industry, right? And I think we are I think a lot of our drivers provide exactly that, right? They communicate so well with the brokers, they problem solve. I think that's one of the biggest assets for an owner operator or a carrier is to problem solve. So a lot of our guys do that. Oh, sure, Howard. I know you were blaming AT&T earlier today as well. Why you didn't answer my call? KMC says mega carriers create the driver shortage. They are the dishonest up and down. They love brokers and brokers love them. They're not going to pay you anything. Mark Renee had tweeted to me earlier. Was it U.S. Express? He sent me an article about U.S. Express and the new training program that they are rolling out for their drivers, and it's honestly, guys, it sounded pretty damn impressive, really. So if you guys haven't seen that article, jump on. Gosh, it was on Twitter. Maybe just quick Google search, but it's kind of an article. I'm sure it's made its way around some of the Facebook sites, but it sounded really impressive. His show kind of sucks now with the health hour. I've never seen the guy speak. I've never heard the guy speak. I've read a couple of articles, and by a couple I mean probably less than 3 or 4. I'm familiar with him only from that, so I can't speak to that. William, I did see that New England Motor Freight, closed their doors, and they've been around for like 100 years or something like that, right? LTL company. To be truthful with you guys, I really wasn't that familiar with them before the article. But I hate to see any company that's been around for that amount of tenure and to see them close their doors. Heavy Metal says, unless you're some Lithuanian company that subsidies paid for your trucks and drivers make 30. Look, I want to say this. There are plenty of individuals that understand cost, P&L, understand this business. Mark stated ask earlier in that other live feed, what are kind of the top 3 mistakes guys make? And if you're running reefer, right, I think if you don't know where freight is coming out of, right? Look, there are times when Florida is hot. There's times when McAllen and Laredo is hot. There's times when Nogales and Yuma is hot. Potatoes coming out of Wisconsin, Utah, Idaho, the Northwest, apples, onions. Like if you don't know those things, you're setting yourself up to fail. Right, so you need to know your business. And again, I'm just kind of rattling off some stuff for reefer that I happen to know. Dry van's different, right? Flatbed, blah, blah, blah. You've got to know those things. But man, oh man, this is a business, right? And I've done a couple of videos on this. Do you want a job or do you want a business, right? And for those that just want a paycheck, you can just sort of jump on the spot market. You can sort of just move around. You can do what's safe and what's easy. But if you really want to grow your business, you need to treat this like a business, and you need to know when are watermelons coming out of Nogales. By the way, that's going to be in about, they're already starting, but it's really going to get heavy in March out of Arizona. So if you're running reefer, find the brokers that are running that freight, connect with them so that you can move some watermelons at really good rates, right? Pumpkins come out of Farmington really often during that October timeframe, right? That's when it's going to be hot, Farmington to Mexico. Just understand your business. It took me, probably 1.5 or 2 years to figure that out. Thankfully, there is some documentation on the USDA website that kind of helps an idiot like me figure out where freight moves out of when, right? So it's kind of a cheat sheet. You know, if you're driving, I don't know what you do, really. But in any event, I don't ever want to discount those that make really quality decisions on having low cost per mile as a barrier to entry. Man, I will never beat those guys up. And so when we talk about cheap freight, what is really cheap freight? I mean, some guys cost per mile is $1.20. Some guys cost per mile is $1.90. For the guy that made the decision to go buy, you know, the big expensive truck and trailer and have, you know, a lot of home time and whose cost is $1.90 to $2 a mile, I'm not going to beat the guy up that's going to haul $1.60 a mile freight because his cost per mile is $1.20 because he does his own maintenance on his truck. He bought a truck that's 5 years old. He bought a used trailer and he's working his ass off. Like, man, I'll never step on that guy's throat because, you know, he wants to try to manage his business far more effectively, doesn't want to waste money on lights and chrome and all that kind of stuff. Hell no, that guy is the one to be applauded. I'm not saying that I don't think, certain trucks are sexy with a lot of chrome and a lot of lights. Well, sure it is. I love seeing that just as much as anybody. But I also applaud the individual that said, look, I'm gonna reduce my costs. I'm gonna try to improve the revenue as well as the profit that I'm gonna make because I'm gonna drive a Freightliner or an older Volvo or an older Pete or whatever it is. Man, I'll never lean on that guy, ever. Hats off to those guys, right? Who are willing to forego the lights and the chrome to make sure that they're doing the best that they can. That's just my opinion. Patrick says carriers fail mainly because of competition. So Patrick, I sort of agree with you. I think they fail to better competition, right? Look, we all know that there are plenty of carriers that, they fold as easy as a freaking $2 Walmart lawn chair, right? Because they don't know what their costs are. They don't know how to manage their business. So they're going to fold to quality competition. Quite frankly, if you take a high school team and you go up against the Patriots, the Patriots are going to win probably 98 times out of 100. But there are those 1 or 2 times that high school team or that college team might actually beat the Patriots. So it can happen. It's just not going to happen consistently. So, set yourself up to be profitable. That's the key, right? Have a lower cost of entry. Yeah, Pigtail, you're right, man. You can be one of 2 categories. You can either problem solver or problem causer, right? You choose, right? One's a hell of a lot more profitable than the other. Thomas Wilson says too much information input. Scott, let's just go scooting in the desert. Man, come on out. Can I just tell you guys this? Kyle and I and a buddy of his that I used to coach when they were young up in Colorado came down. I think my firing pin jacked up on my H&K. I gotta find an H&K dealer here in Arizona. Trucker John says, Junior Schugel? No. Bought out Super Service in Michigan. I have no clue what you're talking about. And I'm sure I just butchered a whole lot of names. XPO is getting ready to buy out a huge LTL company out of Kansas. Interesting. Mark Sate says Chrome doesn't pay the bills unless you're the Chrome shop selling stuff. Isn't that the truth? Man, Mark, you and I met, let's see, was it Will out in Denver, what, year and a half or so ago. We were at the TA North Denver. And again, there's plenty of trucks that just look super sexy. And man, I applaud those guys that have pride in ownership. I'm not, no disrespect. And I don't know what their costs are, and it's none of my business because that's their business. I'm just saying, this is a slim margin industry, and make sure that you've got control of your costs and you can manage your profit and loss so that you don't fail, right? And that's sort of the topic of this video is, why do guys fail? I got 4 dogs. I don't even answer ads that say occasional overnight. That's funny. Most popular videos around. Would you haul 33 pounds of cow manure to a fertilizer plant if the rates were decent? You know, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know, maybe. Orion, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Let's see. I'm not working 70 hours each week for low wages. I'll drive Uber first. I gotta tell you, I take a lot of Ubers to the airport and around, and I don't know how. I don't understand. I think it's amazing, right? Here's what's amazing, right? Let's say you want to blow your nose. What are you gonna get? You're gonna get what? A Kleenex. Well, it's not a Kleenex. It could be a tissue. It could be any of like 100 brands. In fact, it could be toilet paper, but you still call it a Kleenex. What's amazing to me is that in just a super, super compressed amount of time, nobody says, I'm going to call a taxi anymore. What do you say? I'm going to call Uber. Even if you're going to call a Lyft, right? Or you're going to use even if it's Lyft, you're going to get an Uber. I mean, it's sort of like Michael Jordan, right? Tiger Woods. I mean, Uber has capitalized on the name brand of the market, right? Even if you're using toilet paper, you say, I want a Kleenex. You talk about Tiger, you talk about, Michael, the number 23, those sorts of things. I mean, Uber's kind of just captured that market. I don't know how those guys do it profitably, but, hats off if they do. So to me, it's no different in that business model than being an owner operator, right? You got to know your costs and you got to manage your P's and Q's. Orion says, doing great, busy. I thought things were supposed to get easier. No, I don't know who said that, Orion, but I think they're liars, right? I don't think things get easier. I don't. Marvin Bell says, how much should a truck net you per year? Well, I think that's sort of like what's cheap freight. I mean, I think that's a really tough question to answer. I'm not trying to dance around the topic. I'll just say it this way. Are you a guy that wants to drive 80,000 miles a year, right? Like, here's the thing, like, what's his face? I care so little for this guy. Chad Boblet over at Rate Per Mile Masters, right? Chad drives like 60, 70,000 miles a year. What he doesn't tell anybody is that, he's making tons of money. He implies he's making all of his money driving trucks, and he's doing such a great job because he's doing a phenomenal job at getting a high rate. Hence his name of his Facebook page, Rate Per Mile Masters. What Chad doesn't tell you is that he's getting paid really handsomely from DAT, from Triumph, and from others, from his affiliate sites, from guys like you that go and sign up. And I got no problem with Chad making money there. That's fine. The problem I have is legally he should be disclosing that. He's not. So I guess that's a little bit of an issue. But don't sit there and imply that guys should be making $4 a mile when the rates dictate that it's a $1.50 mile market. Right, that's a load of BS. So don't sit there and imply that guys should be making, $250,000 a year because the average guy doesn't have a Facebook site or YouTube page or that sort of thing, or they're going to be making lots of money, right? So just be honest, right? It's great that you're making all this extra money. I applaud you again. Hats off for using your social media presence. Got no problem with that, but don't imply to the guys and allow guys to feel like they're failing because they're not taking vacations over to Thailand for a month at a time, because they're not milking guys for factoring services or DAT affiliate links, right? Just be honest with them. Hey, I'm going on this month vacation. Thank you to everybody that signed up to Triumph and to DAT. I appreciate it. I'll check in a month. I'll do some live feeds while I'm drinking coconut drinks over in Thailand. I'm cool with that. Just be honest so the guys don't think like they're failing. That's my 2 cents. So what should a net? Look, if you're running a reefer, and I'll speak to that because we do that most often, on a bad year should be about $250,000 in revenue. A good year should be somewhere close to 300, right? What you net out of that? Again, do you want to drive a long-nosed Pete that gets poor fuel mileage, it's got a bunch of chrome and a bunch of lights on it? Or do you want to drive something that's 3 years old and you're going to do some maintenance on it yourself, and you buy a used trailer, right? Those numbers are vastly different. So, so it's up to you to determine what your cost of entry is. Oh, by the way, how much research did you do on contacting insurance companies, right? How much negotiation did you do with multiple factoring companies? It's a really tough question to answer, so I'm not trying to dodge it. I'm just saying it could be all over the board. Taxis take 15 to 30 minutes to show up for a ride. That's 10 minutes, costs you $60. It's true. Kristen and I, we were, where did we go the other night? I sort of live outside of town, like a ways, right? And so it's sort of like 20 minutes to everywhere. But even then, I was blown away at how the Uber ride. I forgot what it was, but it wasn't a lot, for what I expected it to be. But we took care of the guy. But nevertheless, let's see. L. Will says Chad doesn't know the difference between them. Man, I'm not going to go on a tangent, right, on this, but I do want to speak to it. I feel like if you're going to sort of have a social media presence, you do need to know the difference between then and then. And you are right. That guy doesn't know the most basic English language, and it drives me nuts. Okay, maybe it is a tangent, Jay. I'll let it go. But no, it drives me nuts. I'm not a big fan of the guy, and you're right. Oh, well, I just want to agree with you. It drives me nuts. I couldn't take it anymore. I pointed it out promptly. You got booted. That's funny that you got booted for that. The other day, he was talking about clothes. He was in Vegas or somewhere, and he had somebody do his laundry. And he said he paid $80 to have somebody do his clothes. And he spelled it C-O-L-S-E, like close the door. It's not close the door. Somebody clearly pointed it out to him, so then he edited the comment to spell it correctly. Nevertheless, I'll let it go. Eddie says, how much data do you need to understand your variable cost for new drivers? I don't think it's in my opinion, I guess I don't know the exact question that you're answering, Eddie, but what I can tell you is if you're tracking cost per mile, once you get to about 20,000 miles worth of data or runs that you're capturing, before that 20,000 miles, your numbers on your spreadsheet are going to be pretty significant swings. Once you get to 20,000 miles, those numbers are really going to thin out, and you're going to have a much more accurate number, right? So that's so I'm sure that answers your question, Eddie. But once you get about 20,000 miles, about 2 months worth of running into a new spreadsheet or a new year, your costs should be pretty flat. Now, that's not to say that if you run less miles or fuel costs change or things of that nature, that can have a pretty noticeable change in your cost per mile. I mean, it can swing 15, 20 cents pretty quickly. Will we get to a $1 per mile rate again? We're already there. Most popular videos around. We've seen some of that about 2 weeks ago. I haven't seen much of it lately in the last week or two, but two and a half weeks ago, I saw some rates as low. Full truckload rates, 69 cents per mile was the cheapest that I saw. Yes, that was out of Florida, but I saw some of those kind of rates scattered around the East Coast. So yes, we did see some of that. The really interesting thing to me was that freight volumes had not dipped dramatically, most certainly not warranting those kind of rates. I just can't help but believe that it's a lot of manipulation by shippers and by brokers in the market, right? It's February, and so rates should be dropping, right? Last year, there was such a massive volume of freight that try hard as they might, they still couldn't overcome it. Although, I'm sure that plenty of guys took kind of cheap freight, if you will, last year. This year, the volumes aren't quite that low, quite as high as they were last year, but still. Little Viking, no, I don't need anything from Home Depot, but if anyone wants to call Evans Fruit and share with them what you feel about them screwing carriers, there's the number. It's 509-678-4127. Let them know. Orion says 200 sheets, 3/4 inch plywood. Man, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Gary Roach says, thank God I went back to Gary Roach is here. Now, Gary, I've only read just a sentence of your comment. You're usually negative Nancy. Lately, you've been positive. I'm going to see. So what does Gary say? Where'd he go? Thank God I went back to hauling cattle. You freight haulers are just getting shafted by every way but live. Yeah, you're probably true. What's the rule of thumb for only tires? I don't know what you mean. How are brokers pricing $1 a mile if they consider $1.70 to be average their carrier cost? Again, they're obligated to ask, and you're obligated to say yes or no, right? Here's the craziest thing. So I've talked to a lot of brokers in the past 2 months, and I've asked a lot of questions like, why do you guys ask for our AMC number? And some are honest and some are not. But some that are honest and some of the bigger brokers will tell you that they want to check you on SaferWeb. You know, they want to make sure that your CSA scores are decent. And some will tell you that they use that data to track to see what they have, what price per mile you have taken freight at before. I had this conversation with a dispatcher that we've hired, and I said, there is 1 or 2 brokers that we have consistently taken insanely high rates from. Whatever you do, do not take a low rate from them if you get a truck stuck. Because the second you take a low rate, that will change the dynamics of how we get paid from them going forward. Sure enough, they got a truck stuck, they called on a load, and we have had to fight tooth and nail to get back up to the rates that we had taken previously. All because of just one dispatcher taking a couple loads, you know, quite frankly, because they were lazy and not doing a good job. So, you know, if you think that when they ask for your EMC number, you understand that a lot of these larger brokerages are tracking what they pay you, right? So that should concern you guys. It concerns me. Truckers Coach, welcome. How's it going? Says Duke lost tonight, so all's good here in Kentucky. Right, no doubt. I get that. You got to have your loyalties. Orion's talking about his dreams last night. Listen, I don't want to hear anything. Nor does anybody else want to hear about your dreams with Jay Cannell. We don't want to hear it. Cannell will tie up anything minus the humans. Yeah, he retracted the video or the comment right as I was reading it. We all crawled into an old Freightliner and ramped it off over the pond. Listen. Rule of thumb for cost per mile for only the 18 tires. Rule of thumb, cost per mile. I'm sorry, I still don't know what you mean. Forgive me. Patrick says, broker for FAK. Okay, this ought to be good. We track every load of the past 7 years. Patrick, I want to talk to you really quick. Okay. So we've been, and I don't know how big you guys are, but I have seen some of your loads. I have called you guys on some of your loads. And I will say, nothing against you guys, because I'm sure you guys are just trying to turn a profit. You guys have some of the worst rates that I have seen in the western third of the country. Again, no disrespect. You guys are entitled to make a great profit. And this is an issue here's an issue that a lot of guys have. They want to whine and they want to cry about the amount of money that brokers are making. Brokers are doing a fair amount of work. I don't care if Patrick, I don't care if you're sitting in your Superman underoos at 8 o'clock in the morning, eating a bowl of Cheerios, in your underwear, on a laptop and a cell phone. I don't care. If you are building the kind of relationships with a shipper and you're making $4 a mile profit and you're only paying a carrier $1.70 a mile, hats off to you. It's up to us as a carrier to go and do exactly the same thing that you're doing, right? We have the same opportunity that you have. If we don't take advantage of that and we're going to rely on you, then shame on us, right? Shame on us. I've not taken a load from you guys because your rates are pretty horrible. Again, nothing against you. I'm just talking about your company. But I appreciate you sharing the fact that you guys track every load over the past 7 years. It's vital information. So thank you for sharing that. I think it proves the point of guys need to be diligent and realizing that any one load can sort of change, if you will, their credit score with a broker. Patrick goes on to say, to be honest, I have contracted rates year round in the $1.80 per mile. My average profit per load is 19%. Cool. I think that's a fair profit, Patrick. I mean, I got no problem with that. Again, you're providing a great service, meaning you're doing all the work. You know, if we're willing to reach out to you versus reaching out to direct customers, there's a cost to doing business, right? There's a cost to that. You should be making some money. Ryan says, subject of brokers. My wife worked in the same office as some brokers that dealt primarily with flatbed. They worked 5 minutes out of every hour, played Xbox the other 55 minutes, worthless. I know some dispatchers that do the same thing, right? They want to go be professional gamers. So, I mean, I don't know. Seems like the heavy-duty barge containers are on the rise, or is it just me? Man, most popular. I'm not sure about that because I don't follow that closely. Newsflash: Scott's picturing a broker in their underwear. Thanks, Norlord. Yeah. How many brokers does it take to screw in a light bulb? I don't know, Tom. How many? Now Jay's feigning like he's creeped out by Orion. We know that that's not true. Brokers couldn't push rates so low individually, though. It's got to be coordinated on the low freight would sit, never allowing the market adjustment by all the other brokers. Well, look, I mean, there's a lot of freight that's moved. I mean, all you have to do is jump on Truck Stops or DAT and see the amount every day that's moved, and you'll see that there's a boatload. And for these guys that don't know what their costs are, if we assume that there's just 1 million owner-operators, which I believe there's more than that, if we just assume that there's 1 million and 90% of those don't know their costs, so that's 900,000 guys every day, or at least probably every 2 or 3 days, right, that are taking a load and they have no clue what their costs are. I can see where that could have an impact on the market, right? For sure. For sure. Gary Roach says, I can't run my truck for what freight is paying nowadays. Gary, I think there's a lot of guys that are in your shoes. I think there are a lot of guys that are running their trucks for revenue and not profit, right? And if you're running for revenue, I mean, there's a lot of companies that are in that situation. But if you're focused solely on revenue, that means times are tough for you, right? And a lot of companies are in that situation, right? A lot of companies are in that situation where we just have to chase revenue for this week so that I can make a truck payment. And that sucks, but you're there. Jake also says, so if you're bragging about all of it, about that, it just says to me that you can stand up to pass a lot more to the driver, is what I think you're talking to Patrick. Patrick said before that, 2018 to 2089 brokers. I'm assuming you mean 2018, 2019. You guys did 150 million in revenue. All right, so you guys aren't small, clearly, right? I mean, you guys are a pretty decent sized company if you guys are doing $1.50. Again, I mean, hats off to you guys for doing a lot of the legwork that other guys, carriers aren't willing to do. And if you're making 19%, I mean, look, that's that. So look, what that says, Patrick, and I think that's what Patrick is clearly saying is, look, if you want to make another 20%, right, do what a broker does. Make your contacts, do research, make the phone calls, be diligent, do the legwork that a broker does, and you can earn another 19%. And that's what Patrick's is saying. Elwell says, right about carriers not knowing costs, but rates all drop instantly together. It is funny. It does seem like at certain times of the year, some somebody behind some, some closet doors, like pulling some lever, and magically rates in particular areas drop. It's a little crazy to me. I will say that I don't understand how that happens. It's fascinating to me. It does seem coordinated. Michael D says, Michael, listen, Canel, you don't need to come in here on my little channel and, make Canel's head bigger. He's been drinking since like 5 o'clock today. He doesn't need it. Gary Roach says, I've got a bottom line that I can haul for. And if I'm going to spend more on hauling a load, then then I make after expenses, and the load can sit. And Gary, I think there's a fair number of guys that are like you that understand what their costs are. But if you have no clue what your costs are and you're constantly running behind, you just need to take that load that's going to pay you $2,500 or $3,000 or $3,500 just so you can make the truck payment. And that's what's sad, right? That's what's sad. Medicare Hottie says, you are sending thoughts and prayers to my hairline. Thank you very much. My hairline receded a couple of years ago. In fact, I had a pretty thick head of hair until I got into trucking. And since dealing with drivers, my hairline needs thoughts and prayers, so I appreciate that. There's a reason why a lot of companies start brokering their own freight. They know the truth and how much it's truly attainable brokering. Sure, no doubt, right? No doubt. I mean, look, I'll tell you right now, we had this conversation a couple of years ago. We were looking at buying a greenhouse in Florida. And what's funny? A couple of the owners said, man, we can't do that. Shipping costs are just going to be, we want to ship product from Florida to Texas. Man, that's just going to kill us. I said, time out. No. That would be one of the best decisions that you can make, because guys would haul that freight for $1 a mile just to get the hell out of there. It would be one of the best decisions that you can make, right? So that's an example of some individuals not understanding transportation, not understanding the market, not understanding that geography. That would have been a great decision. Again, for the company, not good decisions for those guys that go into Florida that don't carry their backhaul with them. But trust me, hauling freight out of Florida would be cheap. Canal, thanks for killing Steve Herring's comment, because that's a load of crap. He says, Patrick says, I think that is overthought. I move loads out of Grapevine, but yes, I post out of Dallas. Is that a big deal? No, I don't think that's a big deal. What I can tell you is that, I've seen a lot of, I saw today, Scott Lynn posted probably 20 different loads out of the Nashville area, everywhere from Nashville down to Georgia, all the way up to Kentucky for one load. That's a little egregious. Do I think Grapevine to Dallas is a big deal? No, I don't, Patrick. I think you're well within your rights to post that. So I got no problem with that. Not that I'm the end-all be-all. What would it cost to replace all 18 tires on a truck, including associated costs like labor and any new parts needed for valve stems? Well, man, okay, so this is the third attempt. I appreciate your specificity. Now, dare I say, are you talking new tires or are you talking recaps? I'm assuming you're talking new tires for steers. You're probably looking roughly $900 to $1,000 for your steers. Whether or not you want to do recaps or not for your drives, that's up to you. Trailers, possibly you want to run recaps. I don't know. You're talking super singles? What? I don't know. So now I want to ask for even more detail. And by the time you answer and I get to it, we're probably going to kill this live feed. L. Will says he takes cheap freight to support his Girl Scout cookie addiction. I want to talk about this just briefly. Chris and I went into the grocery store the other day. Girl Scouts were out front. That's all she could talk about the whole time we were inside the store. I made sure that we went out the cash register on the opposite side of where the Girl Scouts were. They were just at one door, not both. But in addition to that, I made sure that we bought something that I'd never before seen, which was Snickers ice cream. I hadn't seen that before. I mean, I've had whatever it is. What's the ice cream place that chops up the Snickers and puts it in the ice cream? I've had that. I didn't know that there was like a Snickers gallon of ice cream, so we bought that. So the Snickers ice cream coincided with the fact that we went out the non-Girl Scout cookie door. I didn't have to buy Girl Scout cookies. Will says misposted loads, but brokers are ridiculous. If a carrier posts multiple cities, at least they'll be in a city to pick up the book load. Brokers misposted loads don't actually exist. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Cold Stone. Yeah, there you go, Canal. Thanks, appreciate it. It's the ice cream place. Look, I understand if a broker's trying to find a truck. I get that. I don't mind it so much. But when you're going to post 20 different cities or 15, I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. Like, I mean, or at least if you're gonna post, Patrick, here's the thing, man. Tell your buddies. If you guys are looking for a load out of, I don't know, Kansas City, you're gonna post it, 100 miles away, in the comments section, like save me having to make the phone call and save you from having to receive it. Just in the comments say, hey, this load actually picks up in this city, right? Just tell me that, and then I'll call you if it works for me. If it doesn't, just save everybody the time. Brokers have the lie of Florida locked down pretty good. This ought to be good. Was that a good company that brokered their own freight and was getting $2.05 a mile? Went to crime. Stink to train. They only paid 88 cents per mile. We've been fortunate sometimes out of Florida. I mean, the rule of thumb is still the same with certain areas, right? And that is take your backhaul in with you, right? Patrick says everyone who says I am against the driver, by the way, is wrong. I also have my CDL and I drove OTR just to get a viewpoint of a driver. It helped me as a broker. Patrick, I've had a lot of people try to get me to team up with Canal, which I would never do, not in a million years, not for any amount of money. So hats off to you. And again, man, you provide a service to this industry and you should turn a profit for that, right? You got a family to feed. I got no problem with that. You guys provide a service. Jake now calls me a wuss, which is partially true. All new tires, how many miles can one expect to get on a tire before replacement? Steer tires, you're probably going to replace about 100,000 miles. I'm not familiar with super singles because we don't run them. You can probably, for some of your drives and trailer tires, if you're going to run recap, you're probably going to run somewhere in that $300 to $400. Probably 50% more than that for new. I would tell you that the other thing to understand is that if you're going to be running new tires, your fuel mileage is going to suck for probably the first 3 to 5 months until those new tires kind of get broke in, and then your fuel economy will improve. So again, probably somewhere in that, again, $1,000 a piece for some steers, probably 500-ish for new for everything else. If you want to run recap, you're probably looking in that $300 to $350 range. All in. I hope that helps. So this live feed has gone ridiculously long in addition to Jay's feed. So did I play in the foreign currency market at all? No. However, the guy 2 comments above you loves to talk about gold and silver and cryptocurrency. So you and Canal, you guys should do a little dance. I'm just telling you. Maybe that's your own live feed. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Patrick says that's all the same thing. Fools over the FMCSA said 5 years ago when cramming e-logs up our asses. We have CDLs to rabble. We're only looking out for our best interest. Fair enough. So Gary Roach, man, I'll talk about this just briefly. And look, I'm gonna be a little harsh on some of our drivers. So Little Dog Will and God, who were we having lunch with? Little Dog and God, I can see the guy's face. Another travel local driver. We were having lunch over at Danny's Big Rigs here in Phoenix. I met them and we went in to have lunch or breakfast, whatever it was. We were walking by their trailer and I said, wow. So Will had a TPMS, tire pressure management system, on his trailer, as did the other driver, and I can't think of his name. Will says, I've replaced one tire, one, on my trailer. And I forgot the number of miles that he said, but it was well north of 100,000 miles. One tire he'd replaced. And all of his tires looked absolutely symmetrical and perfect. And I know for a fact because, one, he's an owner-operator. He's very diligent on his tire pressure, and he has a TPMS to help ensure that tire pressure is consistent. If you guys were to go in our yard and you look at some of our trailers, it looks like the surface of the moon. Some of our drivers do an absolutely piss poor job of managing tire pressure and checking tire pressures on some of our equipment. And that costs us a lot of money. And I'm just being candid. And so there's a big deal. And Gary, you're 100% right. Tire pressure is key to reducing your costs and pissing away money on rubber. To me, it's a really easy thing to do. I was absolutely psychotically diligent about checking tire pressure on the RV. Now, granted, I didn't have 18 tires. What did I have? 2, 4, 6, 8. I had 10. But I'm telling you, I was psychotic about my steers. Probably every other time that I fueled up, I would check, all the tires. And so I agree with you for sure, Gary. Empty fuel. Let's see. What'd you say? Never had any luck with recaps. They peel off way too soon. Yeah, I mean, recaps. I mean, it's flip a coin, right? You're gonna get a bad recap, or every now and then you'll get lucky and get a good one. Pay more, cry once. That's a pretty good analogy. All right, let me start to wrap this up. I got some popcorn to eat. William says, waiting for a ticket to drop off in June. I think I'm gonna go to the U.S. Postal Service. The Teamsters took them to court. Here in a test case, I won 15 slots. Well, good for you, man. Orion, I'm not gonna talk about you, man. Allie, take care. Jorge says, 90% of the brokers I've called for loads on the DAT board have already booked the loads, even when it's posted within the minute. What's up with that? Depending on where you're at, that can happen. It is, right? I mean, look, I'll be the first to admit that I post a truck, I'll cover that truck, and sometimes I'm really quick to remember to take it off. Sometimes it might be up for 2 hours before I get a call from someone that says, hey, here's your truck in wherever, still available. And I apologize, and I'll go and take it down. So, we'll have to give them a little bit of grace. Tom says, in all honesty, thanks guys for doing these types of videos. Live Talk's very educational. People like me who don't know this stuff, well, you're welcome. T. Holland says, the gauge rides on the side of my driver's seat. Very good for you. Check it. It saves you a lot. Orion's bailing because he's thinking about Joe. He's got to go make some dreams about Joe in his underwear. That's fine. LOL says, if you're running recaps, likely costing you more money than your drivers. Possibly. Ask Joe Evans at Evans Fruit why he hates drivers. Let's start to wrap this up. Listen, we started this whole thing. We got screwed by a company. They held our trailer hostage for about a day and a half. They wanted to offer us $200. If you want to call them, I would greatly appreciate it. I don't ask you to subscribe. I don't ask you to like my videos. If you want to call Evans Fruit tomorrow at 509-678-4127 and share your opinions on what it's like for a shipper to screw a carrier because they screw up the paperwork, even when the carrier does everything right, I would appreciate it. Tom, a few more questions, we'll get out of here. Tom says, I'm not a trucker, but I just like Patrick. I'm just on principle. Come on, man, Tom. Give Patrick some love for coming in and being honest. We gotta appreciate that. Oh, we'll take care. Canal's out of here. He's drunk. Barb says, I'm noticing an overall theme with the brokers getting screwed by them, but needing to maintain the relationship. It's therefore no one says the details. Fair enough. Empty fuel, take care. Portuguese, welcome. We're out of here. You guys, as always, thanks for the ridiculously long live feed. Check out Canel's video earlier tonight and the one live yesterday with the broker, Steve. Good conversation. Interesting. We'll try to do some more of these. I think it's interesting. As always, you guys make miles. Stay safe.